Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson? Mr. Denton?
Here.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. The next item is a moment of silence to be led by the Board Vice President.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be led by Abby Darr, an 8th grade student at Sequoia Middle School.
Would you please rise? Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I please say a few things about my school? Hi, my name is Abby Darr, and I'm thankful and honored to be here tonight. I would like to say that Sequoia Middle School is the reason that I have achieved many of my academic goals. Sequoia is filled with great educators and staff. They are excellent role models in the life of my school. I aspire to be as brilliant and successful as my teachers, as well as Sequoia's principal, Mrs. Williamson. The instructors are incredible at approaching our education and have had great impacts on our lives. A few examples of these impacts would be the friendships established between the teachers and students, the knowledge that the teachers share with us students, and the hard workmanship that the teachers encourage. Sequoia's orchestra program has also assisted me in becoming a successful musician. My 7th grade orchestra director even encouraged me to try out for the Tulsa Youth Symphony, which I am currently participating in. Every single one of my teachers encouraged myself as well as all students to do our best. Mrs. Williamson and the teachers at Sequoia are the people that teach us and make us students what we are and will be. I have learned necessary skills such as how to work with others, how to be determined to achieve what I want, and to be devoted to school. These skills improve my ability to work with others, be successful, and work diligently. I have learned this in my duration of time at Sequoia Middle School. I aspire to be a lawyer, and I'm choosing law because in my history class I have learned how laws have affected America, and I would like to make a positive impact on the world. Sequoia has provided me with an education and community to help me achieve my goals. There is truly no better place for students to grow, learn, and achieve academically than Sequoia Middle School. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the formal adoption of the agenda. There are no issues that have been brought to my attention prior to the meeting.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to formally adopt the agenda. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. Next item, under Board Reorganization, the oath of office to formally swear in Mr. Jerry Denton, the re-elected Zone 5 board member.
Okay. So you got
Right here.
Cross the heart.
Right.
I swear. Pinky swear.
I, Jerry Denton,
hereby declare
hereby declare
under oath
under oath
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
perform the duties
perform the duties
of board member
of board member
of Broken Arrow Public Schools
of Broken Arrow Public Schools
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I
and that I
will faithfully discharge
will faithfully discharge
all of the duties
all of the duties
pertaining to
pertaining to
said office
said office,
and obey the Constitution
and obey the
and
Constitution
the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and Oklahoma.
and Oklahoma.
Here we go again. I, Jerry Denton,
I, Jerry Denton,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and the laws
and the laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
and the laws
and the laws
of the State of Oklahoma,
of the state of Oklahoma,
and that I
and that I
will faithfully discharge,
will faithfully discharge,
according to the best
according to the best
of my ability,
of my ability,
the duties of
the duties of
my office or employment
my office or employment
during such time
during such time
as I am
as I am
a board member
a board member
of Broken Arrow Public Schools.
of Broken Arrow Public Schools.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda has to do with the Board Policy 1040. When adopted, it does require the Board of Education to cite or to recite the Code of Ethics and the Conduct. And that, of course, will be done by me. I will read that, and then I will entertain a motion then to accept the Code of Ethics and the Conduct. This Code of Ethics and Conduct signifies the strong commitment on the part of the Broken Arrow Board to base our decisions and actions on ethical standards. It defines the professional behavior required to fulfill our obligations of being effective and responsible board members. While serving as a member of the Broken Arrow School Board, I will accept the responsibility to improve education, and I will remember that my first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of all students attending Broken Arrow Public Schools. Obey the laws of Oklahoma and the United States. Work collaboratively with other board members to establish effective board policies and to formulate legislative goals and strategic plans for the district. Recognizing that board members do not run the district on a day-to-day basis, I will delegate authority for the administration of the schools to the superintendent and staff. Recognize that the board makes decisions as a team and that as an individual board member I have no authority to speak or act for the board. I will not attempt to conduct unauthorized activity on the board's behalf away from the school board meetings. Respect the right of other board members to have and express ideas that differ. Recognize that decisions are made by a majority vote and should be supported by all board members. Ensure that when responding to the media or in communication with others, a clear distinction is made between personal opinion or belief and a decision made by the board. Commit to promoting a respectful, cooperative atmosphere in which all board members have access to the same information in order for the board to effectively serve the students. I will refrain from making disparaging remarks about other board members and will maintain professional decorum when discussing school matters. Respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law. Respect the right of the public to be informed about district decisions and school operations as allowed by law. Adhere to the principle that the public's business should be conducted in the public viewing by observing and following the letter and the spirit of the open meeting law. Encourage the free expression of opinion by all board members and staff, seeking systematic communications between board members and the public inside and outside the school district. Make every effort to attend all board meetings and come to board meetings informed concerning the issues under consideration. Render all my decisions based on the available facts, appropriate public input, and my independent judgment. Support the employment of staff members based on qualifications. Give staff members the respect and consideration due skilled professional employees. Maintain a cordial and professional relationship with the superintendent, but acknowledge that a board member will be unable to objectively and impartially evaluate the superintendent as required by law if a board member forms a close personal friendship with the superintendent. Recognize and reward excellence in student achievement, teacher performance, and administrative leadership. Improve my ability to serve as a board member by studying educational issues, participating in appropriate professional development. Insist all board and district business be ethical and honest. Report through appropriate means and channels. Corruption, misconduct, or neglect of duty whenever discovered. Avoid conflicts of interest or the appearance thereof. I will refrain from using my board position to benefit myself, family, or other business associates. I will not place the interest of individuals or groups ahead of the interest of the district and all students in the Broken Arrow Public Schools. Review orally and in public session the annual organizational meeting, each of these principles, and abide by them as a board member. I would entertain a motion to accept.
Recommend approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to accept the Board Code of Ethics and Conduct. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. The next item on the agenda are the election of officers, the first being the board president.
I'd like to recommend Cheryl Kelly for that board
Second.
president. I was discussion, but I'll make the motion.
I second.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any other comments, discussion? Seeing none, I'd call that for a vote.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. The next position, board vice president.
I recommend Steve Allen.
Second. We have a motion and second to elect Mr. Steve Allen. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. The next position is the board clerk.
I recommend Jerry Denton.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve Mr. Jerry Denton as the clerk of the board. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Do we have a voting button?
The last position,
One
deputy.
second. One second.
We don't have a voting
I
button.
believe we had a
Oh,
voting
okay.
button for that last.
Sorry, I just passed that one.
If not,
Going too
do it
fast.
manually.
It went to the next one.
I'm sorry, it won't go back.
That's
Okay,
okay.
that's fine.
As long as
Just
you
take
put
it,
manually.
take it in writing there, and we'll make sure that that gets in the minutes. The next position is the deputy clerk.
I'd like to recommend Steve Majors.
Second.
We have a motion and second to nominate Mr. Steve Majors as the deputy board clerk. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Just so that we're clear, the voting buttons that we have right now are for the board clerk.
Okay, yes, they are.
Okay, so what we
It may
need,
need to
Deputy
catch
clerk
up.
should be
Let's
next.
see if it
Yeah.
catches up.
Okay.
we could move to the next button and then,
It should come up in one sheet. There we go.
There
There
we
we
go.
go.
Okay, there we go.
so let's go ahead and take that voice vote for the deputy clerk
Okay.
again, please.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes, thank you. The next item under the minutes are the February 9th, 2015 regular meeting minutes. Any questions or comments?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the February 9th, 2015 regular board meeting minutes. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. The next item, under Summary of Awards and Achievements, I don't know who we have. We do have Mr. Kamara Washington here to present the foundation. Oh, it's Amanda Summers. Miss Summers, I apologize to you. My eyes went ahead. But Kamara, come on up as well, both of you. Yes.
Good evening, President Kelly, members of the board, and Dr. Mendenhall. Before I put it to the vote, I would like to introduce Kamara Washington, and he is the president of the Broken Arrow Public Schools Foundation.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to kind of inform you of the this year's teacher grants. This year, the Broken Arrow Public Schools Foundation is going to provide teacher grants for the teachers and students in the district of Broken Arrow Public Schools. This year, we had 138 applicants for a total of $80,759. We granted a total of 87 grants, totaling $46,830.86. This is the largest amount that we've ever granted out as a foundation. So, thank you. Or any
Thank
questions
you.
for me?
Mr. Washington, I would like to certainly, on behalf of the Board of Education, thank the foundation and thank all those who are responsible to fundraise, to do all of the things that assist our teachers and our staff members in the classroom. It's greatly appreciated. It means a great deal to our students and their learning. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Okay, this item that I bring before you tonight is for the discussion, motion, and vote on motion to approve or disapprove the 2015 classroom teacher grants awarded by Broken Arrow Public Schools Foundation and presented by Mr. Kamara Washington in the amount of $46,830.86.
Okay, are there any questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the 2015 classroom teacher grants awarded by the Broken Arrow Public School Foundation and that was presented by Mr. Kamara Washington in the amount of $46,830.86. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Ken Ellett.
Good evening, President Kelly, Board, Dr. Mendenhall. I'd like to first ask Brianna Barker to come on up here. I'm going to make her stand up here while I do this. I could see what you were saying under your breath, Brianna. Brianna is a senior on our swimming team, and I wanted to go through real quickly kind of a quick bio for her. As a freshman, she won the 100 freestyle, was state champion. As a sophomore, she was the state champion in the 50 and the 100 freestyle. As a junior, she was a state champion in the 50 and the 100 freestyle. And as her senior year, we were kind of worried because she was dealing with a shoulder problem most of the year, but she worked through it and went on and won the state championship in the 50 and the 100 as a senior for 7 state championships in her career. Brianna Barker. And her mom and dad are in the back, Chris Barker and June Barker. They'll wave. We tried to get one more year out of her, but we couldn't.
Squeeze one more. Congratulations. Good luck to you.
I noticed her dad had a KU jacket on.
Is there any significance?
In fact, I have a note for that. She did sign a scholarship with the University of Kansas and will be swimming there this next year. Next, I would like to, I can't even begin to tell you how proud or even put in words how proud I am of our wrestling program, our coaches, our student athletes, our families, because it takes so much to go to where they went to this year. But I'm going to let our head coach of our wrestling program come up and tell you about the wrestling program, Coach Sean Jones.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, board. Thanks, Dr. Mendenhall. Standing up here tonight, I've got these 11 young men. They're the qualifiers for Broken Arrow in the state wrestling tournament. I'm very proud of them. You know, some of the goals we set this year are in academics, dual state regionals, and then ultimately to be the state wrestling champions. In academics, at the first of the year, looking at these guys' grades, I knew that there was a possibility for us to be able to qualify for the the academic state championships. You have to have a 3.25 grade average. When I put our regional team together, we had a 3.27. And so we qualified and didn't really know where that was going to get us, but at the state tournament, they recognized the state champion. It was a 3.53, so we're right there. And so it's the first year that we've been able to apply for that, and that's something in the future that we're looking forward to and also trying to win. The dual state championship is our second goal. These last three happened in the last 3 weeks of February. And that's what we train. We train as soon as the wrestling season is over, and we start working for that next year. And we try to be at our freshest, we try to be at our highest level in those last 3 weeks of February. And this year at the Dual State Wrestling Championships, you've got 14 matches in a duel, and we wrestled 13 matches. The score was 27-26. It came down to the very last match, and people were like, that last match is the one. No, there was we lost 3 out of 4 overtime matches. And the pretty guy in the pink over there happened to wrestle the very last match. And it was against a good 220-pounder, and it was double overtime, and we got beaten. I think the final dual score was 29-27. And, you know, we wrestled Stillwater twice this year, and it was probably the greatest high school competitions I'd ever been a part of. The first one came down to some controversy, but we lost it. The dual state was nip and tuck all the way to the 14th match, and we lost it. And looked at the kids after that was over and said, you know, that's behind us, and it hurts. I know it hurts all of us because that was one of our goals that we tried to achieve and didn't quite get there. The regional tournament is important to us because you can't win a state tournament without qualifying your kids, putting your kids in that state wrestling tournament. And for the 7th or 8th year in a row, we won the regional championships this year, and the 11 qualifiers are standing here. And ultimately, the greatest goal is to win a state championship. It's the last competition of the year. And every year, every season, we point towards that last weekend in February to win that championship. And so before I give away the ending and talk about it, I'd like to bring up kind of each individual and talk about this first young man, Tyler Lawley. Step up here, Tyler. Tyler is a sophomore. The improvement that he showed over the year was incredible. I mean, he was getting beat by kids the first year that he was beating in the regional semifinals. And so Tyler is a great kid. He's a great student. And Tyler Lawley took 3rd in the state this year. 4th. He said 4th, but I like 3rd better. Nobody else knows better. Next young man, Tewan, step up, please. It always takes Tewan till the end of the year to perform at his best. And he had a great competition between him and another kid this year in the wrestling room that they were ranking. They were trying to earn the position on the team. And I think Tewan settled that at Bishop Kelly. He's a sophomore. He's a 2-time state qualifier. Looking for him to get on the podium next year to win a state championship for us. This is Tewan Daniels. It's tough. It's tough to get into this level of competition at any grade. But when you're a freshman, it's really hard. And we've been kind of eyeballing this kid for quite some time. He's come up through our junior high ranks. We knew he was going to be a good one. And for him to qualify and win a match at the state wrestling tournament and score points for us was huge. And that is freshman Caleb Wise. Come over here. He's a cute little boy, isn't he? You have to experience it. You have to be there. And as a sophomore, this kid got to go to the state wrestling tournament. One of the phrases and the things that we describe, he freezes up like a deer in the headlights. He's a great athlete, and he can do amazing things when he relaxes. And he qualified as a sophomore, and he went there this year to the state wrestling tournament and did it again, first round. And I'm glad I couldn't find him. I would love to have words with him about his performance in that first round, because I just knew that he had more than that. He could do better than that. And he was beat in the first round by a kid from UConn. And finally settles down, and he battles back, and he wrestles the very same kid for third and fourth in the state, and almost major decisions. He almost scores more than 7 points, 8 points on him. And he's a junior, and he's back. He took third in the state this year. It's Isaiah Page. Good job. Come here, Skylar. Skylar Haynes is a 15-year-old kid, and all year long, people, and he looks a lot better in this in a wrestling singlet. And he's 15 years old, and people all year long was, where'd that kid come from? Where's that kid? He was like 152 pounds last year. By the end of the year, he was having trouble making 182 pounds, and had a great season as a sophomore, and finished as the state's runner-up at 182 pounds. And Skylar Haynes. Trent Lawrence. Come here, Trent. Trent Lawrence is also one of the major wrestling sites was looking at our state wrestling tournament, looking at the weights in it, and heavyweight. He's a heavyweight, by the way. If anybody can't tell, heavyweight was the toughest weight, they said, in the nation. And as a sophomore, Trenton navigated his way through it and was able to finish fourth against. There's a couple guys that are going to Division I football. A couple guys. It was a extremely athletic weight. And as a sophomore, we're expecting him to get higher on the platform and win a state championship next year. I think all those guys graduated, right, Trent? It's Trent Lawrence. Figured out how to do this. Quit wrestling as a 7th grader and start playing baseball. And don't ever come back to wrestling until your senior year. And then, voila, you go win a state wrestling title. And that's exactly what this young man did. He came back this year and kind of had a slow start and kind of got things rolling, kind of got things in the right direction, and then happened to have somebody move out of his weight class was a big deal. And he kind of got to think, I could be a state champion. And after a 4-year absence from wrestling and just playing baseball, Christian, step out. This young man comes in the restroom this year, and at the end of his senior year, he wins a 160-pound weight class and is a state champion. Proud of him. Christian. Two guys are real special here, and I'll do it one at a time. Peyton Bailey, you can step out. Peyton Bailey is part of a wrestling legacy. His family, his father won state championships. His brothers won state championships. His middle brothers won state championships. And he's been in the state finals 2 times previous to this. And, you want to talk about, he's a senior, he's graduating. You talk about pressure on me and our coaching staff to get this guy a state wrestling championship and follow the Bailey legacy. He's had an incredible high school career. Like I said, he's been in the state finals 3 times, and the most beautiful thing, he ended it with a pin in the state finals. This is Peyton Bailey. Stephen Allen. I'm so glad Stephen got his hair fixed. This is Stephen Allen, and First time I met Stephen Allen, really started competing for us, was as a freshman, and he came in and wrestled in a real important match in the dual states for us. And kind of the first time I got to see him, I think his freshman record, he wrestled maybe 4 times for us. Sophomore, he jumps in the lineup, and the work ethic, the extra things that Stephen's done throughout his high school career has put him in a position for me to recognize him as one of our last people, because he ended his senior year, I believe, with, what, 2 losses? 2 losses. The record probably 36, 37-2. The only 2 times he was beaten was in the national tournament we go to in Ohio. He demolished all the Oklahoma competition, and he stands before us tonight as the 195-pound state champion, Stephen Allen. A kid is a 2-time champion. He was a 2-time champion, and his junior year, people don't understand this. At one point in time, he was ranked like number 1 or number 2 in the nation. And he's got a nemesis on I-40 in Oklahoma City, and his name is Boo Llewellyn, and he's wrestled Boo his entire life, but Boo Llewellyn's pretty good too. And probably the most highlighted match of the state wrestling tournament was Davian. Go ahead and step out, Davian. Davian Jeffries. They've had battles back and forth. Davian is committed and going to the University of Oklahoma to continue to wrestle. He's a 2-time state champion. He's a 2-time runner-up, and we're very proud of him. And last but not least, today we're ordering rings and we're fitting rings, and I told everybody Friday that you got to bring your deposit, you got to do, and of course it's pretty typical. Pup, step out. Pretty typical of Pup Simmons to, I didn't hear that and I didn't do that. But this young man has had a stellar high school career. He's a 3-time state champion. He's a 1-time runner-up. He's committed to go to Iowa State University next year and continue his wrestling. And I hope by the end of the year that he remembers to do something that I asked him to do the first time. I asked him to do it. And so very proud of this young man and his pup, Marcus Pup Simmons. Thank you for having us here this evening. And guys, come, let's shake the board's hand. We're done.
Next item on the agenda are the comments from the public. Seeing that we did not have any, we will move to the next item on the agenda, which are the reports to the board. We have Ms. Westman here.
Good evening, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, and board. I appreciate the continued support. Last week we wrapped up the Read Across America. We brought out the Catavan and brought Greer Nichols out of retirement to play the cat. We traveled to 5 different sites: Aspen Creek Elementary, Linwood, Highland Park, and concluded at Spring Creek. On Friday, March 6th, we had also planned on having outreach to teach on that day, which is OEA student members who come to fulfill a service learning project, but due to weather circumstances, it's having to be rescheduled, but we still are going to put that on sometime before the school year ends. We also had to reschedule our Common Sense tour, which is sponsored by PTA, where we will be having a discussion on the impact of high stakes testing, and we have rescheduled that for Thursday, April 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda are the general consent agenda items 17 through 31. I have not had anything as far as questions or concerns brought to my attention regarding these items.
Recommend approval.
Second?
We have a motion and second to accept the general consent agenda, items 17 through 31. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. Next item on the agenda, under Superintendent Board of Education Communications, Dr. Mendenhall.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, I bring to you tonight some information about the calendar. Of course, as you know, we've had some inclement weather the last few days, so we felt like that this needed to come to your attention so that we could kind of put some of these fears to rest. If you recall, we approved the calendar last year, the instructional calendar, and basically what's happened is since that time, we usually build in what are called snow days. What they've done is really it's built into the calendar to where we have 3 days at the end that we would continue to go. Some people have asked us to put the day at the end and count backwards. Some of us, you know, you have the last day and then you have 3 days. Long story short, what I'm recommending to you tonight is that we go ahead and just kind of finish out our instructional calendar as it states. It shows that May 26th, May 27th, and May 28th would be our 3 makeup days. If you recall, we've taken off February the 24th, March the 4th, and March the 5th. So the other thing that some people have asked about is I felt like you needed to know about graduation. The graduation date really does remain the same, May the 19th of 2015. And then what we'll do is make sure this is updated. The instructional calendar is updated and is available on the website. So really don't think there's any changes or any vote if we follow the schedule that's there. So that's kind of what I thought we would recommend because that's really what our folks have really counted on us doing. So I'll try to entertain any questions if you have any or any thoughts.
Dr. Mendenhall, I do agree that since the calendar has already been provided to our public and those snow days are within that calendar and our public is very much aware of it, the right thing to do would be to go ahead and use those days as the makeup. Certainly if we had inclement weather that was far beyond that, it might be something that we might want to consider some alternate. But right now at this point, I think your recommendation is a good one.
The only other thing that I might just ask in open session as well with this is this, as you have seen our calendar, I feel like it's really spelled out really clearly. Is there any feedback that you've received from patrons or parents that maybe we need to look at as we move forward in our calendar development and that kind of stuff? I don't know if we've had very little questions, but I wanted to make sure that if there are any that you have received, that we are able to address those with our committee.
Well, I don't want to say that there are additional. What I do want to say is I think people really appreciate the school district considering staff members, parents, certainly the children in the district. And I think by having the calendar out there, having the discussions, and then putting that information out there where people know when we have inclement weather what our plans are going to be, the information that I've received is it's much better. Does it mean that we don't still have other conversations around it? Probably not. But for the most part, I've not been hearing anything negative to that end. And I certainly, as a board member, given where we were when I first entered as a board member, the calendar is so much more informative and so much more respectful, I think, of our parents and our staff members.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure we clarified that. Thank you. I believe I'm on the next one. Item number 33, presentation and discussion of instructional time task force progress. Wanted to kind of set up a kind of a thought process for you of what we've done this year, and I want to really commend Mr. Perry and his task force that has been put together to really start looking at what it means for us as a district and what some of our issues have been as far as what do we need to do, when do we need to start school, end school, and really kind of look at the whole picture. And in that, we have found that, there's a lot of things that we've really kind of struggled with. Our district has grown. If you recall, in the last 5 years, we have actually touched all 27 school sites, but we've added a lot of schools across the district. And some of those schools are a little bit more spread out than normal. If you think about where Oneida Ridge is located, even though Park Lane has been out there, I think we're another mile over. So you've got some area there that has changed. You've got an elementary and a middle school. You also have a centrally more north central, I guess, location with Creekwood. We also have locations in the south. Of course, Indian Springs was taken offline and Aspen Creek was put online. So there's been a lot of changes, I would say, in the last 5 years. And in that, I think just recently I did an interview, and when I walked in the door, we were at about 16,300 students, and we're 18,411 students. With that comes more bus riders, bottom line. And I think what we've tried to do is really try to maintain our routing system and what we've done as far as pickup and drop off. Within that, it's really been more difficult because we haven't really adjusted with that as time has gone on. So what the committee really found is that there are some issues with pickup and drop off. We have students that are waiting sometimes quite a while for a bus. And we felt like that the busing and the transportation needed to be adjusted in some way. One of the recommendations has been, we really need to move to 3 different waves or 3 different start times. Currently, we have 8 and 8:55 as our 2 start times. So you have 8 o'clock for our secondary students, and we have 8:55 for our elementary students. And I think we've done this, as far as we can tell, is we've been doing this for years. In fact, so many years that I think we can't even go back far enough to know when it started, but it's been a long time. And so I guess what I'm basically getting to is that we figured out that it was the right thing to do is probably go to 3 separate start times. Now, I want to explain this to you too. We actually, as we talked about it, the committee said, well, just doing it for transportation is a good thing, but what's best for kids? And so they began to look at the research behind what is best for kids to start school and when the best time for them to learn would be. Well, I think sometimes when you overlap some of those issues, it becomes a little bit conflicting or confusing a little bit. And so what we did was we put research together and we put some articles out for people to really review. And some of you, or all of you, have heard, we've come to you, I think, twice to really talk about what those sleep patterns are and what the best time for students and adolescents to learn, et cetera, et cetera. So, of course, that would make some changes or some differences of when our elementary kids would actually attend school. So, in the meantime, we felt like it was really good practice to be transparent and give our parents and our patrons a chance to be a part of a survey. And boy, did they give us their opinion. You got to be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. So we asked the question, and so tonight I'm going to give you kind of some of that data on the start times. The number you see there is the number that has taken the survey so far. We had 4,200 people vote in the bond issue. We have 4,256 as of, I think, 10 o'clock this morning that had taken the survey. What's interesting about that is people really do care. They want to have input. The second thing is they care about their kids and their what they're getting for an education. And I really applaud our community for weighing in. This next graph is really interesting because there's where everybody lines up when you look at the 3 start times. And what that shows you is that there's not a real compelling answer because you've got about the same amount that have put that together. So that becomes a quite a difficult, I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be 90%, or even 80%. But at this point, it's really one of those that a third feel like they want to go to school at 7:50, a third want to go to school at 8:30, and a third want to go at 9:10. It would be nice if they were all in the same category, though. Like all the elementary want to go here, all the middle school want to go here, and all the high school want to go at another time. But that doesn't quite work that way. This next slide, you can see that how the elementary school is voting. If you see in the first column, 38% have said 7:50. 23% have said 7:30 or 8:30, excuse me. And 41% have said 9:10. I'll keep going. Middle school. 20% or 21% say 7:50. 56.85% have said 8:30. And then 18.72% say 9:10. So, I guess I can surmise that the middle school definitely doesn't want to go last. The middle school parents do not want to go last. Their preference would be at 8:30. Okay? So I feel pretty good about that one because at least we've got at least over half that want something. Then you go to the high school and the freshman academy. Starting at 7:50, you have 41%. Starting at 8:30, 19%. And starting at 9:10, 39%. 39.63 to be exact. So what I can surmise from that is that they definitely don't want to go at 8:30. So I can tell you that the high school and the freshman academy don't want to go at 8:30. So that's off the table, I would think. The middle school doesn't want to go at 9:10. They want to go at 8:30. So that's off the table for them. And then you've got the elementary that's pretty even with 7:50 and 9:10. The reason I'm telling you all of this, I think it's very difficult to make any clear-cut decision with the survey data. I'll even go even further. This gives you some reasons why they chose what they did. You can see here that parent, work schedules, caregiver, 51.86% or over 2,000 people really chose what they chose because of that issue. Okay, so most of it is because of that. As you go down, I think the very top one is childcare, was 31%. And then as you go all the way down to the bottom, you can see the research and the research on start times and academic achievement, I think was about 30%. So I feel like that the data is probably good because it really tells us that one, they're really not unhappy with the time frame that they're in right now. It's really what I think they're telling us. I do think that we need the 3 start times, but it would say to me that it looks like that the high school could probably start first at 7:50 and be okay. I really think the middle school could start second at 8:30. And then the last group to start would be your elementary at 9:10. So I'm not making that recommendation tonight, but I will tell you just from the survey data and what we've talked about as a committee, and looking at all of the components, I also have comments. We did an open comment section So there's some information there, and I'd be happy to share any of this stuff with you if you'd like. And there's people have some real concerns, of changing the times. But what I wanted to do tonight is just really kind of give you an idea of where we're at. Our plan at this point is to bring a recommendation to you April the 9th, which is our regular board meeting. We don't have any recommendations again tonight, but we will have a recommendation on that evening. I feel like I need to keep the survey open until March 13th. That was the original idea, was to leave the survey data out there, or actually the survey open for people to take it. So we'll do that. And then next week we actually meet with the instructional time task force. We'll come up with some final recommendations and then bring those to you in April. I know that's a lot of information, but I wanted to kind of give that to you tonight so that you had an idea of what we're seeing. And then I'll take any questions or thoughts, comments that you guys might have at this time.
Dr. Mendenhall, a question I have is, have there been other districts or other regions that have maybe moved into this type of scheduling arrangement, and are there some learnings there, or maybe some observations that have been shared with you?
I can tell you this, that every superintendent I talk to about it, they say don't do it. They actually say, it's one of the most controversial things other than redistricting zones. Yes, there are districts around us that have different times. Most of them have really gone to the 3 start times, but they've not necessarily started their secondary students later. What you get into is you've got a lot of students that have after school activities, and they also work. So that becomes more problematic. The other thing that becomes a problem is we have Tulsa Tech, and so our students do either morning or afternoon, and we have to kind of line up with when they offer that in the region. The other thing that has been kind of an obstacle is that the little ones being catching a bus when it's dark in the morning. Bottom line, I mean, I would have a hard time with that, even with my own children. I want to make sure that I think through that as well. But those schools that have done it, they have seen a lot of good things, but it's usually pretty painful when you do the complete flip. So again, just looking at the data, looking at the survey, I feel pretty good about kind of where we're headed. But I would not probably recommend tonight that I would flip secondary and elementary, just simply because that's not what the community's telling us.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Any other questions?
And I might say, lastly, President Kelly, I think one of the things when you're asked about this, I would recommend that you really, one, encourage them to take the survey, but two, always remind them that yes, we're gonna push the envelope to try to do the very best for kids, not only when they're picked up and dropped off, but also really what's best for them academically while they're at school. But sometimes that doesn't work, and we don't want to do things that our kids are doing well, and our bigger problem is our logistics, and we need to make sure that our logistics with our busing gets fixed. We feel like that the 3 waves of buses will help us in that manner. So I think that's really, we were trying to do a lot of things at one time and don't want to get that confused with all the other stuff that we were trying to look at. So, because we really started out with a problem and we kind of created another one by putting some data out there, which I was in full support of. But encourage the parents and the patrons to, and if they have questions, call us too, because we'll be happy to have a conversation. In fact, I know that Mr. Perry and some others have had meetings with parents personally here at the Service Center to talk to them or talk through issues. So we're listening.
The question Dove had asked me, or If you go to 3 times, does that mean you don't need any more school buses? You don't need any more school bus drivers? Is that good?
Kind of interesting. In it seems like, you know, and I'm kind of the same way. I tend to not get into the details of things, and I sit over here and think, well, why can't we do this or that? The actual details of this, we would actually have less drivers. It would take less drivers to do the 3 waves than what we currently have. I think at last count we had 13. We were down 13 bus drivers.
Mhm.
In other words, we didn't have 13. We have 13 positions that are not filled. In the first plan of the 3 waves, it would actually take less drivers and less buses. So it's really not an issue of buses, because we could have enough buses on the road. We could purchase those. The problem has always been finding enough drivers. And I will say, from coming from other school districts, this is a problem everywhere. This is not just unique to Broken Arrow. It's pretty widespread. So we've adjusted our I think it was last year, Mr. Thompson, you may know this, but I want to say within our time here, we've adjusted the salaries of bus drivers. So we've increased to be competitive in the region. So it's not like our bus drivers are paid, you know, they're within 10 cents of each other. There's not a whole lot of differences.
Other questions? Thank you, Dr. Mendenhall. You can move to the next item.
The next item is looking at presentation and discuss of the OSSBA Brighter Future Rally supported by the Oklahoma Education Coalition, scheduled for Monday, March 30th. This is one of those things, if you guys remember the educational rally that occurred last year, there was a lot of work that went into that the coalition actually was a part of. Last year we did participate. If you recall, we actually let school out and actually made up that time later in the year. And what we have done this year is we really tried to be a little more, I guess, thoughtful in the reasons why we would be out. And so what we did was we actually gave a survey, talked to the teacher association here in the district, and we were both in agreement that it would be a smart thing for us to put out a survey. Long story short, the teachers do want to participate, but really at more of a level of kind of a group or a delegation going rather than letting school out. So tonight, what I would tell you is, first off, we're very supportive of the rally. We feel like that a high quality teacher in every classroom is very, very important. We've got a lot at stake. If you think about the funding mechanism, I mean, they're telling us $611 million shortfall, but yet our state superintendent has given kind of a plan of $5,000 in 5 years. So there's a little bit of combating, you know, are we going to get these raises? Are we really $611 million down? Well, the answer is yes to both of those. I think there'll be something that will occur, but I don't know what will give before the other. I mean, I could go into a lot of detail with the rainy day fund, and but I will tell you at the end of the day, what I think we've got to do is what's best for us in Broken Arrow. And what I'm going to recommend to you tonight is that we stay here and we send a delegation from each one of our schools. I will get with the BAEA and actually determine how we'll do that. What we'll probably do is ask for volunteers first, but we would like to have a delegation from each school site, and then we'll try to cover classes as that delegation is gone. I feel like it's the right thing to do. A lot of my or the school districts around us may choose to do other things, but I feel like for us in Broken Arrow at this time, just looking at all of the pieces, that this is the very best option for us.
Dr. Mendenhall, I know that there'll be some thoughtful consideration as to looking at, and I know you said volunteers first, but making sure we're represented as far as, expertise.
Sure.
I do know that certainly we have different issues with different areas within our organization, and so I'm sure with you working with the leadership with the association, what have you, be able to come up with some kind of list that would best represent Broken Arrow Public Schools. So right now, this is just information. We're just discussing it, so we're not going to take any action at this juncture. But do you expect then to bring anything back to us as it relates to this issue?
Well, at this point, no, simply because the 30th will occur before our next board meeting.
Right.
And so my thought is, since the association and myself have both, we've talked about it, we've done the survey, we feel good about where it's at, that we would proceed in just basically sending the delegation on that day. You might want to know, would we
Dr. Mendenhall?
Do buses?
Could I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
We do have a special meeting coming up Friday.
Okay.
And in order to give you certainly the support that you need as a superintendent, I think it would be a good idea for the Board of Education to support that action.
Okay. We'll bring that back to you as a action if that's what you guys, yeah, absolutely.
Sure,
We don't have any problem with that.
he's making, there's no school being missed by, we're
Right.
not calling school off in the district, so what are we voting on?
We're voting on those that are going to be participating. Last year we closed school, so we had everybody going, as many people as possible. This is to have representation from each site. And so it's different than the way we did it before, and to give understanding to our staff members, et cetera. I think it would show that we as a board supported the recommendation of the superintendent to have that kind of representation. And that's my only reason for that.
And I think it would show support that we're supportive of the rally. And the other thing I was going to mention is busing. At this point, we have not really discussed that. We'll probably be able to tell you further what we would do. The problem that we're going to get into is going to be very difficult to send very many buses with teachers on those buses when we have to use them for getting our own students home. So we'll kind of come up with a plan and maybe provide that to you on Friday so that you can determine what direction we can go.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the legislative update. Ms. Christian Welburn.
Good evening, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board. Tonight I'll be providing you with an update on some key legislation. This week marks a noteworthy deadline, as March 12th is the last day for a bill to be heard in its House of Origin, so we do expect to see quite a bit of activity. There we go. The first bill I'd like to present to you is House Bill 1440. This might be of special interest to our board members, as it deals with term limits for school board members. It applies to 5 or 7 member boards, and essentially it creates a 16-year term limit. One thing to note is that the years served need not be consecutive, and if someone is currently serving on a board and they've already exceeded the 16-year limit, they would be allowed to remain on the board, finish their term, but would be ineligible to come back and serve on that board again. This bill was set for the House floor agenda today, but it was not heard, so we'll continue to monitor that.
I think mine was 16 years.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, I'd want you to know too, I have been in contact with our legislative group on this issue, and certainly what does concern me is this notion that you would have a significant turnover throughout the state of Oklahoma on institutional knowledge, and certainly people who really desire to serve on boards of education. The thing that's really interesting here, and I only say this just to educate us all, is that it excludes dependent school districts, which we have a number of them in the state, and it also excludes the career techs. And I somewhat have a concern when you pick and choose which ones do and which ones don't. And I do know from an OSSBA perspective, their concern is we're going to lose invaluable leadership throughout the state. So just to give you a little bit of information on that, I am following this very closely along with other things too. But certainly each of you may have a comment too.
Well, you might notice I have sent legislators some information on this. Really, it doesn't make sense either if you think about it, because five member boards serve 5-year terms, yet they put it at 16. So you would run for your potentially 4th term and only be able to take it for 1 year. So it's really confusing what the Representative Caldwell happens to be from Enid. I happen to reside there at one time in my life. But it's just interesting that they pick this arbitrary number. 7-member boards are the same. So anyway, I've asked those questions and no one has really responded. I have not spoken to Representative Caldwell himself. So,
Dr. Mel, have these same people that come up with these brilliant ideas here pushing for term limits in Washington, D.C. as well? Do they feel the same way with that as well?
Well, and that's the thing that's kind of interesting. You realize their role is much different, because when they run on a ticket. They have to have a registration, which I know that you do, but you don't run as a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. They also get paid to do those roles. So term limits there make more sense to me than a term limit for a board member.
But I don't see them advocating for D.C. to have term limits. And
They get mad if somebody needed or something.
I guess. I don't know. It must actually, usually that's how these bills are, is they've got an issue somewhere in their area that has caused this to happen, but I've not heard what that is.
Well, if you look at legislation over the last several years, much of it has been to undermine public education. And for those individuals that really are ingrained and love public education and understand it for what it is, and there are many that do, if they run, they certainly have an understanding for it. But then there are those that do not, may not like the direction, may like vouchers, may like other things, and they may have a specific agenda. I think this is agenda driven. I think the agenda is to get people off of boards and get those people on the boards that don't have an understanding and love for public education. I am very concerned about that. And, I certainly would have a discussion with any legislator on that matter.
well, Cheryl, and I do too, is you hear the crafty word of local control. This absolutely takes local control away from our local communities, allowing them to select someone if they feel confident in them more than 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms, whatever it may be, as long as they're serving the best interest of the community. And this absolutely does not give communities local control.
You just vote them out. Okay, go ahead.
Well, speaking of undermining public school districts, the next bill I'd like to present is Senate Bill 609. Senate Bill 609 creates a voucher program to distribute state funds to parents through education savings accounts, or ESAs as we usually call them. This bill would allow 80% of the funding per weighted ADM to follow the child, and the remaining 20% of the funding would stay with the sending school district to be used at the district's discretion. There are a couple of things to note about this bill. One, there is no income cap eligibility requirement. And additionally, this bill has been amended since it was first introduced to exclude homeschooled children, as well as to change the definition of qualified student to a student who has previously been enrolled in an Oklahoma public school district. This bill passed the Senate Education Committee on February 16th and the Senate Finance Committee on February 24th, and is now eligible to be heard on the Senate floor. To my knowledge, late this evening, this afternoon, it has not been placed on the agenda yet.
One of the things that does concern me here too is that I have been emailing our legislators. I've not received any response back, and I don't know whether anyone else has received a response either. And Dr. Mendenhall, you sent a very, very good letter last week, and I don't know whether you received a response either.
Well, actually, I have received a little bit. I don't think they agree with me. Let me kind of give you two or three things that I put down. First off, we have another voucher system that was the Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship Fund, which was basically through students that are of special needs that can apply for a scholarship, which is really a voucher system. If you recall, that is still in the Oklahoma State Supreme Court and is being still being heard by them. So it's still pending. So it'd be very interesting to see where they're at with that, and I find it very almost bizarre, I guess, to write law when you don't even know how the first one will shake out in the Supreme Court. My second thing that I talked to the legislature about, or legislators, it's basically taxpayer money that's being utilized for private schools. And, I just feel like that how our Constitution in Oklahoma is written should not be public money, taxpayer money should not be used for private schools. So I won't belabor that point. And then the last one I put down here was the financial burden. The financial impact of Broken Arrow Public Schools could be significant. If we have approximately 18,500 students in our district, and if 250 students were utilizing vouchers, that would equate to about $600,000 a year. This would be an equivalent of losing 12 classroom teachers, which would definitely affect the classroom sizes. So I talk about those 3 points in my letter and felt like that you guys needed to know that there will be quite a bit. Other superintendents in the area are also writing editorials, and so we feel like that this is one of the major, in my opinion, one of the major attacks on public education that we have.
Dr. Mendenhall, do you know if this voucher / savings account, whatever fancy word they're using, it's a voucher. If it passed and I take my child to private school, do they have to accept me?
No, they don't. And that's the other thing is that, I also write in here that those that receive public funds, are they under the same guidelines as the public school? And the answer to that is no as well. So it's going to be I feel like that we've kind of fended or fought this off the last 2 or 3 years. And I just think this is one of those agenda-driven items. I have heard that there is much more of a split. This is a Senate bill, so it's more of a split Senate on this issue more than anything that they've done. So it's not as, I would say it's along party lines, but some of those are now moving to the other side because they're hearing from constituents. And I would encourage people, they hear from me all the time. I think it's really important for our constituents to really jump out there and contact their legislators.
It really is amazing given the support that we have in the state and the support here in Broken Arrow. And it gets back to what Mr. Allen was talking about, local control, because that is the information that we hear continually from legislators. Yet, every year, public education is impacted more significantly than any other area by unfunded mandates and by things that constituents are not requesting our legislators to do. And so I know we all have heard this, but I would agree with Dr. Mendenhall. We do have a wonderful parent group here in our community who is working very hard to stay abreast at all the legislative updates and to communicate with our legislators, because evidently at times it takes really more of a voice to really get the message across. And those of us that really understand public education and work in public education sometimes are not the ones that are being listened to. So again, any help that any of us can provide certainly would be appreciated.
Dr. Mendel, also on, if I took my voucher and went to X private school and it cost so much to get in and I'm accepted, but yet my voucher doesn't cover the full cost, I have to fit that bill myself.
Yes.
And if my economic status isn't to where I can, then I have to return back to the public school system, right?
Correct.
So they're basically going to pick the winners and losers of who's going to be able to use this voucher instead of like public education, no matter who you are, where you're from, your background. We service everyone and educate everybody.
Well, and I think that you said it well. I mean, it's very difficult for the public schools because, we don't get to pick and choose. We also have a lot of oversight. And so I think it's going to be very, very difficult if this goes through. This would actually mean that the money from your ad valorem or the money that you pay in taxes would actually go into an account and you would have access to it. So it's pretty scary.
Well, we did receive a bit of good news today. The next bill I'd like to present is Senate Bill 707, which deals with high school testing. This bill would return the discretion over assessment choice to the State Board of Education. It would also eliminate end of instruction exams and replace them with assessments that generate data that's actually relevant to students and educators. Although it does not specifically name the ACT, it would give the State Board of Education the freedom to choose the ACT as a high school exit exam. And of course, they would also be able to select alternative exams to measure college and career readiness. This bill passed the Senate Education Committee and Senate Appropriations Committee in February, and it was heard in the House today. I'm sorry, it was heard on the Senate floor today, and the measure passed 38-5. So it will now move to the House.
That's good news.
It's amazing there can be some brilliance among all this madness.
Well, I saved the best for last, so the last two. The last one I'd like to present is Senate Bill 20. It deals with teacher recruitment. This essentially just removes some of the hurdles to hire out-of-state teachers, and it's been presented to help address the teacher shortage issue. It would allow a teacher with at least 5 years experience and who holds an out-of-state certification to come to Oklahoma and actually teach that same subject or grade level without taking any additional competency exams. So this bill was passed in the Senate in February, and it's now engrossed to the House.
That completes it, correct?
That's
Thank you
right.
very much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. The next item under operational services, Mr. Brian Daly.
Good evening, President Kelly, members of the board, Dr. Mendenhall. I have a motion to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Tulsa Children's Museum, which will provide an opportunity for 300 B&A Connection students, along with 30 employees, to attend Discover Lab at a cost of $2,640, which will be paid through the B&A Connections Activity Fund. B&A Connections Summer Camp program provides field trips to each child that attends summer camp, and I bring before you the approval to have this opportunity for the kids this summer.
Are there any questions?
Recommend approval.
Second?
We have a motion and second to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Tulsa Children's Museum, providing an opportunity for 300 B&A Connection students and 30 employees to attend Discover Lab. The total cost to the district is $2,640, and it will be paid through the B&A Connections Activity Fund. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
you.
Next item, Ms. Michelle Birdwall.
Good evening, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board. The first two items I bring to you tonight are for surplus items of real property. The first one is the surplus and public sale of the miscellaneous property at the formerly known as Southside Elementary tract. As you know, we sold Southside Elementary in 2010, and at that time we lot split that property where there is a tract 2 of that property, which is approximately 3.11 acres. And at this time, we would like to surplus that property and go ahead and list that property within the next 30 days for public sale. Which what we will do is we'll advertise it and we will set a date to receive bids. And then if those bids are appropriate, we will bring one of those back to you for approval or for rejection of those bids and continue the process to sell that property.
Are there questions?
The property has frontage to Elm and is just north of the
AutoZone.
AutoZone.
And
So I don't know if
south
you
of
guys
the
are
pawn shop.
familiar with, but it does have some frontage, so we feel pretty good about the opportunity to sell it.
There is a picture there on the third page of the agenda item that shows it's kind of an L-shaped property. South side, the Cardhead Start that owns the South Side building now, they would still have their small access out to Elm because the Tract B or Tract 2 is there south of their access point.
And then the other question that I might have is the playground for the Head Start. It is off that property, correct?
Correct. The basketball goals are on our property, but the playground is on their property.
Okay.
There is some concrete slabs out there that are on our property, but we would sell the property as is, and we do have an appraisal of that property, which is also required for us to dispose of it.
Other questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the surplus and public sale of miscellaneous real property at the former Southside Elementary located at 509 West Houston Street, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and lot split from said property by Board of Education action on September 7th, 2010, in accordance with the requirements of Oklahoma Statute Title 70, Section 11. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. Next item.
Our next item is our Indian Springs property. As you probably recall, we did surplus the trailers and sold those at our last auction. We've now cleaned up that site as best we can. We've removed some of the playground equipment, and we are ready to sell or list that property for sale as well. It's an approximately 7-acre site. It is in a floodplain and has flooded twice, to my knowledge, and therefore we have decided that it is not an appropriate place to build a school. There's a small facility there already. As you can recall, we moved those students to the Aspen Creek School, and so at this time we would like to list that property as surplus and go ahead in the next 30 days to list that for public sale.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the surplus and public sale of miscellaneous real property located at the former Indian Springs Elementary, 8800 South Fawnwood Court, Broken, Oklahoma, in accordance with the requirements of Oklahoma Statute Title 70, Section 11. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. Next item.
Our next item is actually to contract architectural services for the demolition of our North Intermediate High School property. I want to say before we take this item that we are still planning to have a public event there that will help us honor the history of that site, but at this time we need to go ahead and hire an architectural service organization to put together some documents so that we can go ahead and get started on that bidding process. We have to look at things like asbestos, where the utilities are, how we're going to reserve the buildings that we are going to keep on that land, and start that process as we move forward towards demolition. So we still intend to have that public event. We have not scheduled that yet, still are looking at what that looks like, but it's time for us to answer some of those questions so we can move towards demo. We're bringing that contract as we'd like to contract with GH2 Architects. Tyler Wallace is in our audience tonight representing GH2, and we ask for your approval of that contract.
Any questions or comments on this issue?
I noticed that says selective demolition, and so
Yes.
it's not just
it's not the entire site. We do intend to keep the gymnasium and the auditorium and possibly the maintenance building, and that's what we'll be looking at in these documents.
Recommend approval?
I was just going to ask
Oh, sorry.
when you may decide to begin to demo.
We were targeting this summer, one of the, or late summer probably. We are starting to experience high vandalism at the site, but we also need a better budget for what we think that will cost us to demo it and figure out where those budget monies are coming from as we wait for our next bond monies to come in. And so all those things are unanswered questions that's what we're starting to work on now.
Okay, we did have a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All right. So we have a motion and second to approve the execution of a contract with GH2 Architects for architectural services related to the design, bidding, and construction of the North Intermediate High School Selective Demolition Project with payment from the 2009 bond funds, and authorize the Chief Operating Officer to negotiate the terms of the contracts. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Our next two items deal with our master contracts for our construction projects, one for our architectural services and one for our construction management services. The first one, I believe, is our architectural services. As you can probably recall, we use the American Institute of Architects standard contract, but we do have to make some changes to that. Most of our changes are to comply with Oklahoma competitive bid law, and then some of them are things that we just don't like to pay. Some of the reimbursables that spell out in the architectural contract are to pay for things like mileage and facsimiles and phone calls, and so we changed some of that language here. So we're bringing these items as our standard contracts and the contracts that we will use as we contract for construction services throughout the 2015 bond.
Ms. Burkwall, I do have a question relative to this. Since we are making changes and these are part of Oklahoma requirements, et cetera, did we have review legally of the contracts as they stand within the board agenda, or could you expound on that?
We have had legal review before, and we had taken those comments into account the last time we modified our standard contract. Most of these changes now are things that we experienced through the 2009 bond issue and things that we would like to change as we deal with our architects and construction managers.
So it still meets the legal, in other words, the legal opinion as it relates to our prior discussion with council?
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? I would entertain a motion.
Recommend approval?
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the contractual agreements AIA B101 2007, AIA A 201 2007, and supplementary conditions as a master contractual agreement for architectural services. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
I don't have any buttons.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
The next item is the same, but now for the construction management services.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the contractual agreements AIA A133 2009, AIA A 201 2007, and supplementary conditions as a master contractual agreement for construction management services. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
As you may be aware, AEP has several energy rebate programs within their Power Forward programs. We try to take advantage of as many of those as possible. One of them that we've been taking advantage of over the years is as we retrofit our lighting, we receive rebates back for using more energy efficient lights. We also participate in their program that reduces our energy consumption when they have a high event in the summer where they're trying to reduce the possibility of blackouts, where they call us and we raise our temperatures in our schools if we so choose. We get rebates back on that. It's one of their Power Forward programs. And their other Power Forward program is a benchmarking study that will benefit their larger clients. The state legislature has required us as a school district that by the year 2020 we reduce our energy consumption by 20%. The benchmarking report that PSO will AEP PSO will perform for us will help us give those numbers to show that we have done that. I'm really interested to see what the benchmarking report says after, because we will look clear back from 2010 forward, and that will show us from when we had all the portable buildings to now that we have all of our permanent structures. So they, as part of their Power Forward programs, will do this for us. You'll see there on the contract that there is a cost to AEP of about $20,000, but that cost will not be passed through to us as one of their participants of their Power Forward programs.
Okay. Any questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Power Forward for an energy benchmarking project. There is no cost to the district. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item under instructional services, we have Ms. Gina Coster.
Good evening, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board, here tonight to discuss your approval, motion to approve or disapprove the encumbrance of funds for fees incurred through the Oklahoma Healthcare Authority. This is for reimbursement of funds that we've collected through Medicaid, and the third and fourth quarters we estimate would be approximately $100,000.
Okay. Any questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the encumbrance of funds for fees incurred through Oklahoma Healthcare Authority related to the reimbursement funds through Medicaid for the third, fourth quarters, which will total approximately $100,000. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Ms. Amanda Summers.
Hello again. I bring before you now a discussion motion and a vote on a motion to approve or disapprove the grant application and receipt of funds for Ms. Heather Newell, Ms. Kim Black, and Ms. Jamie Gregory. They're teachers at Park Lane Early Childhood Center and Aspen Creek ECC for a Fund for Teachers grant in the amount of $8,212.10. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions? I would-
Recommend approval.
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve the grant application and receipt of funds for Ms. Heather Newell, Ms. Kim Black, and Ms. Jamie Gregory, teachers at Park Lane ECC, and Aspen Creek ECC for Fund for Teachers grant in the amount of $8,212.10. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Next item, Ms. Carla Dias.
Good evening, Dr. Mendenhall, President Kelly, members of the board. I have a couple items tonight. The first one is discussion, motion, and vote on motion to approve or disapprove the agreement between Broken Arrow Schools and Jill Molly. She is a consultant with Conscious Discipline. And if you recall, our 4 ECCs and Country Lane primary principals all went to training last summer over conscious discipline, and what they've taken back they've been sharing at the principals meetings. So we wanted to continue with that professional development with our principals, for the elementary principals, APs, elementary psychologists, and counselors. It's a full day training in May, and at that she says she ignites and inspires and empowers transformational change. And then our next hope is to go ahead and invite her back in August for all the pre-K through 5th grade teachers as well. So that's at a cost of $2,020 paid from the instructional budget.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Jill Molly. Ms. Molly will work as a consultant on the elementary level for principals, assistant principals, psychologists, and counselors. The total cost to the district is $2,020, and it will be paid for with funds from the instructional budget. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, our next item, the Wolf Creek Elementary PTA is hosting a fitness assembly for the Wolf Creek students and staff on March 26th at 10 a.m. This is a motion to approve or disapprove the agreement with Broken Arrow and Tulsa Pro Hoops, Tulsa Shock, for a purpose of the assembly. The cost of the district is $300 and will be paid through PTA funds.
Thank you. Any comments?
Recommend approval.
Second?
We have a motion and second to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Tulsa Pro Hoops, LLC. The purpose of a fitness assembly scheduled for March 26, 2015. The cost to the district is $300 and will be paid by PTA funds. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Thank you.
Yes. Next item, Ms. Shannon Turner.
President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board, I come to you tonight and ask that you approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Monty Harper Productions, providing a performance to Title I students and their parents. The total cost of this is $300. It's about an hour-long performance where the kids get to wear their pajamas and bring their stuffed animals, and the guy sings about math, science, reading. It's just really cool.
Get a lot of parents of those?
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Cool.
If you do something like this, you do. Yeah, you do.
Recommend
You might have to
approval.
provide some snacks.
Second.
Other questions or comments?
No. Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Monty Harper Productions, providing a performance to Title I students and their parents. The cost to the district is $300 and will be paid for through Title I parental involvement funds. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Ken Ellett.
I have got a couple contracts for tonight. The first one is a contract with Sapulpa High School for our girls basketball team to attend this next school year their Holiday Classic basketball tournament. They traditionally have a great girls program, and our team would love to go and participate. There's no fee to participate, and they do have a contract.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Sapulpa for the Girls Basketball Holiday Classic scheduled for December 28th, 29th, 30th, 2015, and there is no cost to the district. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Next is our girls fast pitch softball team to attend the Putnam City High School Invitational Softball Tournament this next school year. And again, they will have numerous teams there from the other side of the state, good for our teams to compete against. There is no fee to participate. They will spend one night, and that'll be paid for through their booster club.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Putnam City for the Invitational Softball Tournament scheduled for September 18th and 19th, 2015. No cost to the district. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next item on the agenda, Mr. Chuck Perry.
Thank you, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board. Want to bring two contracts to you this evening. One is we made some connection over the winter time after the football season with our varsity team with Capel High School in Texas. If you know about the tradition-rich programs in the Dallas area for high school football, it's really the best of the best. And after some discussions with Capel, it came about that they had an open date that they would like us to come down. We give the opportunity for our fans, patrons, and band, our cheer squad, our Tigets to come be a part of a game that would bring the Broken Arrow brand into, again, the we consider the top of the line of high school football in the nation that an Oklahoma team could compete against. So to do that and to be able to play that game, we would have to cancel a contract that we've had in the past with Bentonville High School across the border in Arkansas. but we feel like this opportunity to get into the Texas area would open up more opportunities for our kids and provide a great venue and a great stadium and do something a little different than we've done the last couple years.
Any questions or comments on this item?
Is there any cost of canceling this deal at Bentonville?
Yes, it's with both contracts. There is a payment we will get from Capel High School to come down there. They are sharing funds from the gate and giving us a guaranteed gate of $8,500, which will offset the cost of the contract of canceling it with Bentonville that they have with $15,000. All of our teams, though, in all the sports, there is costs that our booster clubs take care of. We're out of our activity funds to make sure our kids have the opportunity to go out of state with fundraising efforts. Our cheer squad, our baseball team goes to Arizona. Our wrestling team travels to Ohio. Our golf team, I believe, just got back from the Dallas area. So we love the opportunity to give our kids the chance to travel and play teams out of state. And again, with this opportunity to go down to Dallas, it really excites us. And I know Coach Alexander is excited about our kids and the opportunity to better our program.
I think, Mr. Perry, when you mentioned that this will be funded through athletic funds, Booster Club, I think what's important here is it is coming out of those funds versus the general fund. So
correct.
Certainly, there is definitely an understanding of that, and that's much appreciated.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Capel High School for a varsity football game at Buddy Eccles Stadium on September 11th, 2015, and cancel the agreement between Bentonville High School and Broken Arrow Public Schools on September 11th, 2015. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
Next item.
The next item I have, I brought to you several months ago, our Instructional Time Task Force formed the 2015-2016 instructional calendar for the year. And there's two items on there that would like to recommend some changes to that have come about over the past month. One, spring break from the information area schools have received in the past as spring break has been scheduled the third full week in March, which we asked to be originally approved on March 21st, 2016. After some information we received from the State Department of Education and her discussion, Joy Hoffmeister with the administration of higher ed in the state, they wanted to clarify to us and other area school districts that it is the third Wednesday of March, which would put it the week of March 14th, a week earlier. There are several other school districts in the area, Jinx, Union, that had it like us, and that had been understanding in the past, but with the way it fell this year, they did let us know that they would like the Oklahoma schools to go the third Wednesday, making it that week. So asking for that change to the instructional calendar. And then the second one came about with some conversations we had about PD, starting to plan that for next year, along with some discussions with our principals. And we originally asked, and it's been something that we've done the last couple of years, and had two professional development days that have been mandated by the state during the school year. One traditionally has been held in September, and the second one held in February. After discussing it with our team, we really felt like, and Dr. Mendenhall brought this forward too, that with all the new initiatives that are falling down our way and that we're planning for next year, and a couple of those would be Literacy First, our one-to-one initiative, Google Apps, introducing that in the district, a new student management system that we're going to start transitioning into. We've had some committees on student discipline that we would like to have more discussion on with our teachers. We really felt like it would be better served to take those 2 days and move those to the beginning of the calendar year and have a very focused and intentional, almost like a conference you would attend for those 2 days, and have a general session opening speaker, and then have breakout sessions for teachers to go to. So that would be more beneficial to learn these new initiatives and things that we have been building upon so that they could better carry it out throughout the school year, as opposed to having one later in September and one in February. Those 2 dates that we came up with after that discussion would be the Thursday and Friday before Labor Day. So that would be September 3rd and 4th would be those 2 days that we would take. Students would be out of school, and we would have a conference for 2 days. And then again, those would replace the September 18th and February 16th day that we had originally talked about and had approved.
Mr. Perry, districts have the flexibility to set those professional development days, isn't that correct?
That is correct.
And so it is the recommendation of the team to move to those 2 dates.
That is correct.
Well, back up here to the spring break. It looks like we're off the 18th before, on the old calendar. You know, we were going to be off the 22nd through the 25th, right? 21st through the
21st, yes.
Okay, and then we were also off the 18th, right?
The Friday before,
Right.
and we'd also be off that's a professional development day, and we'd also be off, I believe, that 11th.
Okay.
Students would be out of school that day too, so that would
That
move
doesn't
back a
affect the
week
end of the
also.
9 weeks or nothing? Or the
No, it wouldn't really change
Change.
that, no.
Okay.
So really, it's just taking that week and bumping that up
Just moving everything up.
That's
from
correct.
this week and the previous day to the previous Friday.
From my understanding from Dr. Mendenhall, this has been a discussion that in the past should have been happening between Dr. Barisi and the regents of higher ed and the chancellor of higher ed, and that really has not taken place. And this year it did, and again, area school districts are having to go back and make these changes that we'd want to fall in line with the rest of the state of Oklahoma.
Other questions? I would entertain a motion.
Recommend approval.
Second?
We have a motion and second to approve the revised 2015-16 instructional calendar. Please call the roll.
Sorry. Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Just one, can I get one clarification before we vote? I apologize.
Will be next year.
No.
No? Okay, yes.
It's next year.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item under, and thank you. Next item under business services, Ms. Natalie Ena.
Good evening, everyone. These are the monthly financial reports through the end of February 2015. Through the end of February, we've received approximately 63% of our state aid allocation. Just a reminder, our midterm allocation released in late January was $46.9 million. Our ad valorem, you can see we received our big collection in January, and we do expect to receive one last collection in late March or early April, and that will probably pretty much finish out this source of revenue for the fiscal year 2015. All of our state and federal collections and intermediate collections are pretty much on track with where we were last year. Just one note, in our federal funds, the district is continuing to receive federal reimbursement from our MSP Title II Part B grant that was established in the Cooperative Fund 12. And so we are receiving money federally that you don't see reflected on this graph because this just reflects general fund collections. Building fund, again, we're in the same boat we are with our ad valorem collection as in general fund. Hopefully we'll receive that one last final payment in late March, early April. Our local collection are up a little bit from where we were last year, as Ms. Bergwall alluded to earlier in the evening with the rebates from AEP, PSO. These are redeposited back into our building fund. Child nutrition, good news in this fund. All of our collections are have increased from where we were last year to date. Local, state, and federal are all up across the board. Ms. Goodacre has increased student participation with some different menu options and different techniques that we're trying across the district to increase student participation, as well as just serving more students across the district. General fund expenditures, obviously salaries and benefits eat up the largest expense in our general fund. In the travel area, in the Object 500 series, you can see we're continuing to code our professional development in this object category. Our supplies are pretty much consistent with where we were last year. Our consumable supplies, which have to be coded through general fund, and the other object category to note is in the 900 category, which is the other use of funds. We are coding our workers' comp expenses from our general fund to pay back our self-insured fund 83, and so that's where these expenses are coded. Building fund, repairs and maintenance in this fund are up a little bit from where we were last year in our 700 object series. Nothing really collectively large, just some minor projects, sidewalk repairs, concrete and asphalt work, HVAC repairs, roofing work, kind of all culminate to show a little more proportionate expense item than where we were last year in our building fund. Child nutrition, our remodel of the student union and cafeteria were coded to this fund. That was a one-time expense that the district decided to utilize these funds to help spend down some of her fund balance, and so that construction was coded to child nutrition. Like I said, that will be a one-time thing. Food is up a little bit from where we were last year. She has purchased some items ahead to try and combat rising food costs, as well as serving more students across the district. And like I mentioned, in general fund, child nutrition also pays their portion of workers' comp for the district, and that is redeposited into our self-insured fund for workers' comp. And our projected ending fund balance, we're still on track at 14%. We reminded everyone in the district a couple weeks ago that the April 1st spending cutoff deadline is looming very near, and this is the cutoff for basically for all spending throughout the district, barring summer programs and routine items that need to keep the district running through the end of June.
Yes, and as I had mentioned, you know, just reviewing expenditures, what have you, I still want to reiterate that I do believe staff members are doing a very good job at keeping things. I'm hopeful that they're buying what they need to buy, yes. I mean, certainly we don't want to imply that they shouldn't be getting what they need, but again, I think it just shows fiscal responsibility on everyone's part. So I again want to compliment everyone on that end. Thank you.
My next item is to ask the board for an increase in our general fund operating budget of $26,110. We received notification from our Johnson O'Malley program that there is a budget revision Typically, they do a budget revision every spring based on updated student counts, and our original allocation was $81,950, and they have upped it to $108,060.
Okay. Any questions on this item?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the request to increase the general fund operating budget by $26,110 for the budget revision of the Johnson O'Malley Program grant. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes, thank you. Next item, Ms. Donna Dollahan.
Good evening, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board. I'm here to give you the treasurer's report as of the end of February. The cash balances report shows a total of $66,348,000 for the district. Including in this are investments that total $47,490,000. Our fund security and deposit report shows a total of $79,810,000 in collateral pledged to the district. The deposits that require collateral total $58,402,000, leaving an available balance of collateral in the amount of $21,408,000.
This is an information item, but are there any questions or comments? Thank you. Move to the next one.
My next item is the activity fund reports as of the end of February. Receipts total $4,378,000. Disbursements total $3,827,000, leaving a cash balance in the activity funds of $2,553,000.
Thank you. This is
Thank
an
you.
information item also, but certainly if there are questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Ms. Kathy Metavallis.
Good evening. My first item tonight is to request your approval to purchase copy paper. This is for the next school year, 15-16. We need to restock the warehouse. This is 5 truckloads of paper for a total of $97,482. We did get a 65-cent per case savings from last year's bid, so I'm pleased with that. Overall, that's going to save us probably close to $2,500 on 5 truckloads. And so last year we approved the purchase of 4 truckloads. This year we're going to go for 5.
Okay, and this is a yearly purchase, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the purchase of copy paper from Unisource Worldwide for a cost of $97,482. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
The next item are the encumbrance reports. I would like to ask your approval for those encumbrance reports from February 5th to March 5th, 2015, totaling $1,263,279.64.
I do have a question relative to a couple of the purchase orders. Actually, it was at the very end, and my only question is we're purchasing Chromebooks and Apple software, etc. Are those are coming out of the general fund? Are those something that were originally budgeted through technology bond funds and now are coming through the general fund, or these grants that are purchasing? Could you help me out on this end?
Those are out of 511 funds.
Okay. Title I. That's what I need to know. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the encumbrance reports for all funds for the 2014-15 fiscal year. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Next item is the change order reports. for the same period of time, February 5th through March 5th, 2015. These change orders show a total decrease of $93,893.98.
Okay, any questions on these?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the change order reports for general fund, cooperative fund, building fund, workers' compensation, bond funds, gift funds, and child nutrition fund for the 2014-15 fiscal year. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Ed Fager.
Good evening, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board. I'm bringing 4 policies tonight for first reading. These are all in the community relations section of the policy manual and are based on a review by the communications department of just improving some of the policies and addressing some issues that they've found. These policies have not yet been sent to legal counsel for review, but will be sent this week. So. The first one is Board Policy 2000, Advertising in District Media and at District Facilities. Again, this is a first reading. This policy is being revised to expand the coverage of the policy from district publications to any district-produced media. It is also being revised to clarify that the revenue derived from advertising in district-produced media may be used not only to cover the costs of production and/or publication, but also to support other district programs.
Okay, are there any questions? This is a first read, so we are not taking any action this evening. If you do happen to have questions, certainly we would entertain those. If not, and you have questions, you can later make contact to Mr. Fager. Go ahead.
Okay, the next item for first reading is Board Policy number 2060, Distribution of Written Materials. This policy is being revised to limit the amount of written materials and marketing materials that are being distributed to students and employees through the school sites using district resources. It also clarifies which materials require approval from the communications office prior to distribution.
Okay. This is information only. Any questions? Okay.
So is this like football flyers? I mean, youth football comes in here and wants to put something out where we can, is this part of that?
Yes, I believe it would include something
So they
like
can't
that.
do that then?
It's not that they can't do that, but it would need approval from the communications office before that would happen.
Okay.
It just gives the district a little more control over what's being routed through the sites.
Good.
Go ahead. Mr. Fager.
The next item is Board Policy number 2100, Gifts and Donations. And the revision to this policy is to clarify that all gifts, grants, donations that are accepted by the district or its employees, regardless of the value, become the permanent property of the district.
This is information as well, so any questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. And the last item is Board Policy number 2130, Partners in Education. In the revisions of this to this policy, redefine the way that participants in the Partners in Education program derive benefits from the program.
Okay, information only. Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Fager.
Thank you.
I might add, Madam President, that we will, as we review these, there may be a need to, we'll definitely go through subcommittee, because these are 4 really important policies that we need to really vet. I believe that the board needs to also make sure that we really concentrate on some of these, just because there's a lot of detail, and there's some change, quite a bit of change on 2 of the 4 policies. So just wanted you to know that we'll make sure that we take these through subcommittee. Mr. Fager's right, we'll also send them to our council to make sure that we're you know, legally okay in that way. So it may not come back to you, I guess, in April. It may wait till May. It may take us 2 months to get through that process. So wanted you to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is new business. Seeing that we do not have any, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the executive session.
Make a motion to move to executive session.
Second?
We have a motion and second to go into executive session pursuant to Oklahoma Statute Title 25, Section 307B1 and 7 of the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act to discuss the 2014-15 fiscal year evaluation of the superintendent. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
I would
Yes.
please like to ask you to come to order till we finish the business meeting.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Now you may leave.